In the season that we're in, sometimes it seems like a little bit frustrating, like, are we the only ones that ever have gone through something like this? So I think a great question is this: is there any biblical characters that actually went through something similar like we're going through? Dr. Robert?
One is Elijah. You know, Elijah is my favorite Old Testament character. What a life he lived. And it culminated on Mount Carmel, where he faced the enemies of God. And he called the people of God to be faithful. But in the middle of it, right after that victory, the queen told him, I'm going to take your life. And so this bold leader became fearful, and he ran and he hid, the scripture says, under a juniper tree. And he asked God to take his life. He became overwhelmed. But through it, he had to learn, or sort of relearn, how to hear God's voice. You know, he had seen God move in power and fire on a mountain, but he had to get to a place where he could hear the gentle whisper of God. And you know, C.S. Lewis, as that God whispers in our comforts, but he shouts in our pain. So it's vital that we learn how to hear the voice of God. You know, Elijah became overwhelmed, and the Lord asked him a question that he may be asking you today. Elijah, what are you doing here? You know, what is it that you're doing here? What are you doing here? And what are you doing while you're here? A powerful question that speaks to us today. But then what the Lord led Elijah to do, he said, there's something you're missing. And he opened his eyes to the younger leader that God wanted him to invest in, named Elisha. So it's important in this season that our eyes are open, that we're listening to the voice of God, but that we also see the younger people around us who need our love, our attention, who need our leadership.
Yeah, I think that was so good. I would look to Jesus. I think he is probably the model for how I want to live my life. And so on the night before his crucifixion, he was kind of an anxious wreck when you read the Gospels. He was in the garden praying by himself, and he was asking God to kind of take away the thing that he needed to do. And I don't know about you, but I'm really grateful that he went through with it, that he went to the cross, that he died for us. It's just unbelievable. But he went to God with his struggles. He tried to take his friends to pray with him, and that maybe didn't work out the way that he would have liked. But God was there for him in his hardest moment. And he had a level of acceptance of what he had to do. So kind of managing your expectations about what you need to do in this season, really, because there are some things you can control and there are some things you can't control.
Such great answers. So I love both of those answers, and I would just encourage you, go into the Bible and look at both of those stories. Like, look at Jesus in the garden. Look at Elijah when he was going through what he did, because that will help you out so much. I would just tell you also to look at the life of David. David was a great man of God. The Bible speaks so highly of him. We know he messed up, he sinned, he did some different things. But there was a time where he really got into isolation, and that relates to this time so well, where we want to isolate, or we're isolating because we have to. But David, the Bible talks many times about how he ministered unto the Lord when he was in those kind of situations. In other words, he got to God. He got his answer from God. And so I would encourage you, look at all of those different characters. Just those three right there would be something that you can look at and see what they did. I love that all of them ultimately went back to God and got their answer from him, or they got help from him. So I believe you can do the same thing. Thanks so much.